Attack on Titan vs. One Piece. What is the best anime of this generation is what we're going to be figuring out here. One Piece and Attack on Titan are the two biggest anime of all time and have some of the most rabid and aggressive fan bases in all of anime. If you dare criticize the end of Attack on Titan, like Jesus Christ, like Jesus, holy mother of God, and if you criticize One Piece, you better go and hole up somewhere because you're going to have the whole Straw Hat Grand Fleet coming after you. These two audiences love to go after one another and see which one is better. Who broke Crunchyroll versus who didn't have the higher ratings on IMDb. Bloods and Crips gotta move over because this is the real conflict of this generation. If Mahatma Gandhi saw this beef, he would probably give up on world peace if he saw what Twitter looks like when one of these episodes drop. What better thing to do than to debate and put these two anime against each other, see who can come out on top. Is it the army of the Straw Hats or the freedom fighting scouts? Let's find out. So of course we gotta set up the parameters of this battle and this discussion, and here are going to be the biggest parts that we're going to talk about. Number 1 is animation. Number 2 will be side characters. Number 3 will be story. Number 4 will be villains. And number 5 will be the main characters. There also will be a rapid fire number 6 that will have a lot more of the smaller details, and I will be giving a conclusive answer. And just for further clarification, even among these 5, everything is weighted differently for different people, and some people may have animation that weighs over everything, like if you're a Demon Slayer fan. There's also some people that the main character is everything to them. At the end of the video, I'll say what I think. Also, something like the length of the anime isn't going to penalize One Piece, and something like Attack on Titan being over won't penalize them either. But don't worry, Attack on Titan fans, pacing will be taken into account. So I think it's time we start getting into the action. Animation. So here's how we're going to break down animation. It's going to be split into it at its best and animation on normal moments, and the general style during normal talking scenes, and we won't be doing it at its worst because it would be unfair to do that to a non-seasonal anime. And of course we'll be comparing the two styles for each anime, Wit and Mappa styles of Attack on Titan and the two One Piece styles. Now, I know this sounds like it's gonna get really complicated, but I won't, and I'm gonna make it really clear. The One Piece animation style, especially pre-time skip, fits the vibe and the theme and the story really well and has some scenes that are really jagged and feel raw. The one that comes to mind is when Luffy is dragging Nami up the mountain on Drum Island. Super underrated moment, by the way, but it really displays the emotion of the scenes perfectly. And I know a lot of the One Piece community prefer that pre-Wano style too, especially for moments that aren't fights, just because the style is really distinct for that period of time compared to that of Wano with this really flush and art style with crazy colors. And that episode with Zoro and his entrance of Wano, it was just incredible. Although now they use way more effects, and One Piece really has turned into the frame by frame GOAT of anime. I mean, how many times have we seen them spam it on Instagram and TikTok for Gear 5 and Zoro vs King? It's honestly just on another level and really sick. But there's moments that utilize really heavy effects like Luffy vs Kaido part 3, I think, but overall it's still excellent. But although One Piece pre-time skips is really good, we're talking about an 8.5 out of 10. Wit Attack on Titan is literally perfect. Out of every anime I've watched, the Wit Attack on Titan style is my favorite. Not only is it perfect, but the way it fits the vibe and the setting and the aesthetic of Attack on Titan, with the way the reds pop and the orange tints, it's perfect, as well as how emotion is portrayed. Like Kenny vs Levi is the best display of cinematography and motion in anime. Not to mention Erwin's face as he charges into death, Levi showered in blood as he slaughters the Beast Titan, the transformations of all the Titans, the actual Titan fights. That is literally 10 out of 10 in my mind, and honestly will never be replaced. It's timeless. That being said, the Mappa style is not bad either, and it fits the darker setting of season 4. I would have liked to see Wit's take on it. It's not bad. I particularly like the way they scale and frame shot in this really cinematic way, which Mappa does really well in the case of Jujutsu Kaisen as well. But sometimes I feel like they way overdo it with the lines over the eyelid, and of course CGI here is probably the best here than any other anime, but come on, that's still not really saying much, and some of the character designs are a little bit worse than they were before. So in case you're wondering what the conclusion is, I would say pre-Wano and post-Wano of One Piece, I would say averages out to about an 8.75 out of 10, and the Wit style as well as Mappa edges out to a 9 out of 10. So when average out, not to get too complicated into the math here, I would say that the animation in Attack on Titan is better. Don't worry, this will probably be as complicated as it's gonna get because there's the two different styles for both of them. Number 2, the side characters. One Piece and Attack on Titan do side characters like no other, and this is probably one of the closest criteria to calling even on the entire list. As I'm writing this, I still have no idea what I'm gonna choose in the end. One Piece has one of the largest cast of characters in all of anime, if not all of entertainment, spanning over 35 plus characters that everyone can name off the top of their head with ease. Attack on Titan, on the other hand, has one of the most concise casts of characters and is presented in an interesting way where you meet and see all of these characters basically at the start of the series, and you honestly probably won't remember everyone's name until a little bit into season 2, but they're also treated as established characters from the start, which may seem strange at first, but later you realize everyone is relevant and has a part to play. One Piece, on the other hand, has a vast stretch of characters that you meet throughout the entire course of the series, arc to arc, island to island, and each has their own backstory and traumas. What makes this difficult is the fact that they both write their side characters with an immense amount of depth. Sasha, out of nowhere, has one of the deepest character moments of all time whilst having an emotional connection that just came out of nowhere. Kinemon is living with failure of not being able to defend Odin and got sent into the future, leaving his wife behind, only to get his ass beat by Kaido. Levi seems to be a deep-rooted character that's just a menace and a weapon of destruction, but then feels sadness and despair as everyone is dying, and he wants to make sure that Armin, Mikasa, and Eren survive. Isayama made the Levi-Zeke rematch. Why did he do it like that? Zoro seems to be an idiot, but is one of the most loyal members of the crew and probably cares about the Straw Hats more than any other character in the entire cast. Connie seems like an absolute idiot, irrelevant, and then all of a sudden he's looking at his mom that's transformed into a Titan, and you're just like, God damn, bro, that is tough. Tough in the bad way. Senor Pink, and I mean Senor Pink. Man, we talking about Senor Pink. Like, what the heck? Oh my god. Point being, these characters are well written on another level, but how they're used is pretty different. The best way I would describe this is that a lot of Attack on Titan characters are reacting to things going on in the story, with some exceptions, of course. But in One Piece, the characters push the story forward and are the story in many ways, that each character, no matter how small or irrelevant they may seem, most of the time they go on a full character arc in their introduction to the story and are such an integral part of the story and the way you see the world, that One Piece characters are also just what makes this show great and are why so many of us watch the story. They generated this feeling of wanting to watch these characters do anything. Now, Attack on Titan characters are fantastic and go on their own respective journeys at the end of the day, but I think One Piece will edge this out with a 10 out of 10 for side characters to a 9.75 out of 10 for Attack on Titan. But that is honestly an answer that will probably switch depending on what day of the week it is. That is how good the characters are. Now, getting into story. This is gonna be good. Like, the story, holy shit, where do I even start? One Piece has a very much so linear structure where you're watching Luffy and the Straw Hats progressing down the Grand Line, literally on a map, and although there's very rare instances where they move backwards, that's the gist of it. But every stop on that line, meaning the islands and the arcs, tell a full story that honestly is the length and the depth of a full series, and it feels like you're watching a bunch of smaller narratives that aren't really that small because they're the length of like a whole anime, but they feed into the larger story of One Piece that is not yet concluded. Attack on Titan can really be split into two parts in structure in terms of pre-Marley and post-Marley, but every single episode, frame, and moment is not wasted, as well as the fact that it's all working towards one narrative, and you can tell that from the very beginning. The meme that literally everything in Attack on Titan is a plot point could not be more true. There is no wasted scene. Eren's head foaming, Reiner and Berthold waiting to bite their hands, everything with Eren's father. The Titan who ate Eren's mother is Eren's dad's other wife from his time in Marley, but Eren with the past actually sends Diana to eat his mother because she was about to eat Berthold. Like, holy shit. Even though Eren sending a Titan after his mother is kind of stupid in concept, it's still crazy that that was planned out. And it can be hard to do this because One Piece isn't done, but don't worry. If we were to break this down into subcategories, don't worry. For the foreshadowing category, I think it's safe to say they would both get a 10. It would just be stupid not to. In terms of how good plot twists are, Attack on Titan literally changed the entire narrative of their story and revealed that what we thought we were watching isn't at all what we're actually watching, and both One Piece and Attack on Titan use a lot of real world issues and themes in their stories, as we see with things such as racism, poverty, and hierarchy, ruining both of these worlds. And although we aren't taking into account the length of the One Piece anime as a penalty, pacing does need to be taken into account, and of course the manga and anime are different, but just in terms of averaging the two out, it still is just too slow at points that drag out so much just trying to get to the climax. And there's times when you're reading One Piece and you just ask yourself, why am I seeing this? The biggest instance of this was Big Mom Amnesia. Like, holy shit, what the fuck, what were you thinking. But of course, the climaxes are always worth it. The climax of both these stories always deliver every single time. From Luffy building up to beat Crocodile to liberate Alabasta, to Eren trying to place the boulder to retake the land for the first time, to Luffy defeating Doflamingo to liberate Dressrosa, to Eren getting rescued after being captured by Reiner, to Luffy defeating Arlong to liberate Cocoa Village, to Eren discovering the truth of the basement and his father, to Luffy defeating Kaido to liberate Wano. You pick up how many times I said liberate? One Piece arcs can feel so similar, and Luffy is defeating the villain in a similar way every time and saving the island every time, that it can feel like it lacks variety. Luffy gets to the island looks nice, the island has a dark history and isn't as nice as it seems. Luffy encounters the main villain 2 to 3 times, loses, he befriends a local militia, he goes and liberates the island, every straw has a matchup with the enemy crew, and the local militia fights the enemy's father. Although these arcs are so good and well written, and there isn't major plot holes or anything like that, but when you get to an Act 2 in a One Piece arc, before the climax, after the sick intro of a new island, it can just feel like a trud. Attack on Titan throws something different at you time and time again and blows your mind over and over. Ultimately, I need to give story to Attack on Titan with a 10 out of 10 compared to One Piece at 9 out of 10. Moving into the topic of villains, it's a little awkward considering there's different antagonists, and also that would correlate a lot with our last point being the main character, because you know, Eren is kind of batshit. One Piece uses villains in essentially the same manner every time in terms of story function, whereas in Attack on Titan, villains are used differently and oftentimes only work because their goals align. In both series, villains often represent the themes of the story, such as with Doflamingo being cast out of heaven and showing the issues that come with hierarchy. Zeke is just, I mean, man, Zeke, like, holy shit, Zeke is messed up bad. Kaido is someone who had all the promise in the world, but all of a sudden gave up on his dreams. Bertel and Reiner are torn between worlds and don't even understand what their own purposes are anymore. What makes this hard is, depending on perception, Attack on Titan may not even have antagonists because of the lives their villains have lived and their perception. And they play with the concept throughout all of season 4, because from Birthright, everyone from Marley was thought that the island was filled with devils. As much as everyone hates Gabby, she represents what Eren was at the start of season 1 and mirrors him in his values, and their pain is turned towards their enemies. One Piece has a lot more traditional villains, but at the same time the level of depth is there, and each of them have their own unique backstory and abilities. They help serve to keep the story fresh and exciting, but at the same time there's moments when you realize that Luffy could end up turning into one of them if he fails, or if certain things didn't go his way and certain people didn't enter his life, he easily could have just been one of the villains. And that's what makes them so great, because they align so clearly with the world, and you understand how they got to this point, which is special because some of them are just insane beyond belief, like really crazy. So the fact that you can see their progression there is honestly pretty crazy. They also have strong ties to the past world and everything that came before it, and ultimately I feel like my decision would sway towards One Piece for villains, as they probably have a 9.5 compared to Attack on Titan with a 9 out of 10, just because of the crazy uniqueness of One Piece villains whilst keeping up a deep emotional value. Before we get to this last point, I know these ratings and numbers may be confusing and are always close to 10, but just remember, we are talking about two of the greatest stories ever told, so the ratings are going to be pretty high. So the main character, Luffy versus Eren, two men that want to be free in their own right. Eren, who feels like he's a slave to freedom, versus Luffy that wants to become the embodiment of freedom. Luffy living in a world that is filled with so many obstacles, in a place where strength conquers all, and he wants to liberate everyone. Eren wants to free his friends and was trapped in the walls of an island forever without knowing the truth of the world. Luffy doing everything possible to liberate as many people as possible and spreading joy while doing it. Eren doing everything possible to an extreme means in order to save his friends no matter the cost. Luffy levels up and tries to become the best he can be through strength, spreading joy, and watching Luffy on screen can feel like you're watching a friend, like just passing time and someone you know, as if you grew up with him and understand him and want to cheer him on, like as if he's your best friend and someone you've known your whole life. And Eren is a deeply complex character whose goals are unknown to the audience to the very end, but shows what happens when you put a human in these insane circumstances and how much the unknown can drive someone to extreme means. And Luffy, through will and doing everything he can, chases his dream with the help of others to become free in order to be able to do what he wants to do. And Eren uses his friends on this deep chessboard and is willing to sacrifice his own life in order to save his friends to become free. And full discretion, if the final episode hadn't come out, this part likely would have come out in a draw. And regardless of how you feel about the ending, there's no way I can't take it into account. and I'm sorry. Eren gets a huge hit from me after ending with a convoluted motivation and Doctor Strange paradox, and just feels weird out of character moments that weren't built up to in a natural progression to get there, and ultimately I feel as though Luffy edges him out with a 9 out of 10 compared to an 8.5 for Eren. Now I know Eren is so deep and such a good character, and so is Luffy, but at the end of the day, Eren becomes so convoluted by the end of it, and he's gone on this insanely great journey, and there's nothing that you can take away from that. But Luffy is so consistent, and Luffy captures this feeling that not a lot of main characters can capture. So ultimately, I have to give it to him. Now, like I said though, One Piece outweighing them doesn't make my decision lean to One Piece, but there still is a rapid fire round. Now, considering the landscape of both series, some of these may have been more critical to the debate. It feels more straight up like Naruto to One Piece, but considering how unique Attack on Titan is, comparing it to One Piece, it felt like it was right to minimize some of the other stuff, but some of these are also just fun. For the soundtrack, Attack on Titan, I mean, come on now. The very strongest is cool, and the One Piece theme is iconic, but Attack on Titan, the music is part of the story, and Jesus Christ, it goes so hard. Humor, you gotta give it to One Piece. Seeing them is like seeing your gang of friends all hanging out, all having a blast, all making fun of each other. It's One Piece. Come on now. The world, this is so easy because considering the world in Attack on Titan and how it means, but you gotta give it to One Piece. I mean, you're talking about the best world in anime, far and away. Like, holy mother of God. The aesthetic, I love the aesthetic of Attack on Titan. Like, Jesus Christ, that rustic look, that Wit look, like I'm sure you could tell in the animation part, I am such a huge fan of Wit. The aesthetic has to go to Attack on Titan. Fight scenes, also Attack on Titan. I'm not crazy about One Piece fight scenes, to be honest. Even though Zoroark's King is sick and Gear 5 is sick, they're just really long, especially in the anime. And plus, Attack on Titan fights are so unique and so different that for me, it leans Attack on Titan. For non-story lore, so this means everything regarding your interest in the story, not regarding any flashbacks or anything they talk about in the story. So like Gold Roger isn't taken into account here, and like Grisha's backstory, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the general world's lore, and I would still give it to One Piece just because you have so much history there, there's so much stuff you can add, and there's so much intrigue there that you kind of got to give it to One Piece. For intro arc, pilot arc, Attack on Titan, that is one of the craziest intro episodes ever. I mean, who wasn't just like, what happened? His mom just got eaten. Like, that was just crazy. Character designs, I gotta give it to One Piece. I mean, these guys look so unique. Doflamingo is so drippy. Like, what are we talking about here? So, all in all, my conclusion on which I prefer, based off personal preference, the story, and the world, the characters, everything, who am I leaning? It goes to Attack on Titan for me. What Attack on Titan made me feel when I watched it the first time, it literally just blew my mind and shook my expectations beyond anything I even thought possible. Attack on Titan pulls off these complex narratives and stories and plot twists that just leave you shell-shocked. And yes, the ending in my mind wasn't that great, but that doesn't throw away what happened to me before, and that also works against One Piece. Although Wano is great and Egghead is just insane, can't throw away that Dressrosa, Punk Hazard, Thriller Bark, these are all dud arcs, and yes, the more swings you take, the more likely you are to miss, but you just can't ignore it. There's no way you can't take that into account. And One Piece, at times, I get such One Piece fatigue sometimes during those Act 2s, whereas Attack on Titan, you're just always wanting more. And plus, the similarity in arcs of One Piece honestly drives me crazy sometimes, the similarities in structure. And I know that's wrong to say, and I know that's not going to upset a lot of people, but it just is what it is for me. Even though the arc might be written with less plot holes than the Attack on Titan finale, the lack of something being new is huge for me, so that is going to be a huge negative impact. And just like the vibe of it too, Attack on Titan, it's just something special for me. It just has a special vibe, and seasons 1 through 3 is legitimately some of the best entertainment you can find in the entire world, and I honestly don't think many people would dispute that. And keep in mind, I'm not saying One Piece is bad. We are literally talking about the difference between like a 10 out of 10 to like a 9.5 to like whatever, right? Like I don't even know why I use numbers, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they're both so good that I can see why it can be hard to lean one way or the other. There's also a nostalgia factor for people, but for me personally, just the way the Attack on Titan pulled off and makes you feel with the deep story moments, the setting, the animation, the soundtrack, and everything that comes with it, it doesn't bother me that much that they tried something new with the ending and it just didn't work out to the best of its ability. That isn't huge for me. And also, One Piece hasn't ended. We don't know if they're gonna stick the landing either, but I do know One Piece does more things that don't really align with what I love watching in a neck-to-neck race race between Attack on Titan and One Piece. There's just too many things that Attack on Titan does better that I weigh more, that I just like more. That being said, what One Piece does and making you want to watch no matter what is just incredible. Like, the fact that they built up characters and developed them so well to the point where you want to watch them do anything is the most impressive thing in the world. Like, I can't believe they actually pulled that off. And honestly, I think everyone is just sitting on the edge of their seat waiting to see how this is going to go. And maybe we have to revisit this when One Piece ends, when I'm like 45 and 50. Like, Jesus Christ. But all in all, that's what it is for me. And both of these anime just blow my mind time and time again. And I honestly don't think you can really say that one is that much better than the other, just given the level they're both at. So if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, and why don't you check out this one on how Jujutsu Kaisen saved Naruto. You might not even know what I'm going to say in that video. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget, we're just getting started. We're going to stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video.